Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by BetDSI. I'm Tom Downey here with some NFC East rumors, and we'll start things off, of course, with the Dallas Cowboys. The big one around them, this isn't much of a surprise either, Earl Thomas. The Cowboys are expected to make a run at Earl Thomas, as we've said for quite some time on the show, backed up again now by Mike Fisher, who says the Cowboys have begun their in-house plan and their strategy formulation of how they're going to add Earl Thomas. The two main focal points here, it's not about the player himself. They know Earl Thomas is really, really good. I mean, this is a dude who had more interceptions in 4 games than any individual Cowboys player had all of last year. But the focus is on the money side of it and the actual pitch itself. Now, the Cowboys can afford to sign Earl Thomas, but there is going to be a team-set price limit. They're not going to throw $15 million per year at Earl Thomas. So for Earl Thomas, the question becomes, does he want to play for the Cowboys, or does he want to become the highest paid safety in the NFL, which is what he wanted before he got hurt and suffered the broken leg last year? That would be $13+ million per year, might even be a full-on $14 million per year based on the way NFL contracts rise each and every single year. And if Earl Thomas only wants 10 or 11 million, maybe that's when it makes some more sense. And from a need perspective, I am of the mindset that you either go get a legit number 1 elite option, you spend a decent round pick and get a guy that can be your low end 2, low end 3 for now and grow to be better, or you just find more depth. The Cowboys don't need another veteran number 3 type. That's not really, I think, what their goal should be, at least early on in the offseason. And Earl Thomas, despite the injury concerns, which I understand why those are there, is an immensely talented player. Had he not broken his leg this year, I don't think it would have been a huge surprise if he signed a $13, $14 million deal. But coming off the injury in a strong safety class, maybe that's enough to lower Earl Thomas's asking price, or at least get it in range where maybe he takes a little bit less money to join the Dallas Cowboys. I do not think the Cowboys are going to give Earl Thomas $14, $15 million per year. I don't think that's what they want to do. But if he's going to sign for 10 or 11, maybe it makes some more sense. Now, what contract would you offer Earl Thomas? Let me know in the comment section, and maybe we should do a contract projection for Earl Thomas as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section if you want one. And make sure you're subscribed, youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report. Now, for the rest of the NFC East rumors, I'm going to kick it over to my main man, Thomas Mott.
Thanks, Tom. Let's jump right into our first rumors today for all the non-Dallas Cowboy teams in the NFC East, starting with the Philadelphia Eagles. And the question here is, what are the Eagles going to do at the wide receiver position? And more specifically, what are they going to do with wide receiver Nelson Agholor? Now, Agholor is signed through 2019, but he's going to cost about $9.3 million against the cap this year. It's a lot of money for a wide receiver who's not the number 1 option on his team. The question is, should the Eagles sign him, or re-sign him, I should say, or should they trade him? Now let's look at Nelson Agholor's resume from 2018. Now, he had a really good season 2 seasons ago, whenever the Eagles went and won a Super Bowl. But really, if you look at the numbers from this past year, he actually was pretty good as well. 64 catches, 736 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's right on par with his 2017 season. So he's still a very good number 2 option for the Eagles. The question is, can they restructure his deal, re-sign him, and bring that money down, that cap hit down from $9.3 million to something a lot less? Now, we know the Eagles GM, Howie Roseman, he's very good at this kind of thing. A lot of times in the past, the Eagle players will restructure their deals and they'll save money for the Eagles while still being able to technically get their money. The way the cap works, they can restructure and do that all kind of stuff right there. But will they do this with Nelson Agholor, or do they look at their own current wide receiver position and go, what if we just get rid of Nelson Agholor, trade him, get an asset back, and then we re-sign a guy like Golden Tate, who we traded a 3rd-round draft pick for just this past season? The Eagle wide receiver position is very, very interesting, especially upcoming in 2019. Alshon Jeffrey is the only real receiver who's guaranteed to be here. Now, he's the best one on that team, but everybody else, Mike Wallace, Mac Hollins, talk about Nelson Agholor, Golden Tate, there's no guarantee that they're all going to be there. I think the Eagles are going to keep Nelson Aguilar. I think they're going to restructure his deal, keep him here, not just through 2019, but also through 2020, 2021, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal, and keep him on the Eagles because he has been a really good player for them. But we got to keep an eye on this Eagles wide receiver core because, again, Carson Wentz coming back. You have Zach Ertz, you have Alshon Jeffrey. Other than that, you look around this team, and I guess include Dallas Goedert as well, they still need some weapons on the outside, whether that's at running back or on the outside playing wide receiver. It's going to be interesting to see how Howie Roseman, the GM for the Eagles, what he does to give Carson Wentz the right weapons. What do you guys think? Who should the Eagles keep at wide receiver? If you guys had to pick, type G for Golden Tate or type N for Nelson Aguilar. I'm really curious to see how many people will think they want to keep Golden Tate versus Nelson Aguilar. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know. We're going to move right along to our final Eagle rumor here, and this one's interesting. ESPN released 3 possible trade scenarios for the Eagles. So let's take a look at how much sense these trade scenarios actually make for the Eagles going into this offseason. Right now, we know the Eagles, they have little cap space available. They're at the bottom of the league in projected cap space. Now, they can make some moves, getting rid of Brandon Graham. We already said restructuring Nelson Aguilar to be able to get a little bit more cap space to actually go out and sign people. But right now, they don't have a lot of cap space. They do have 9 draft picks. I think when it's all said and done with the compensatory picks, they'll have 9 total, which is a lot of ammunition to go out and make some of these trades that ESPN was projecting the Eagles might take a chance and might do. So let's go ahead and go to the list. Here are the 3 potential trades ESPN thinks the Eagles could make this offseason. The first one, the Eagles trade Nick Foles to the Jacksonville Jaguars for running back Leonard Fournette. It's like a straight-up trade here. You don't see this happen a lot in the NFL. I think the last time it actually happened straight-up player for player was with the Eagles and the Bills whenever the Eagles traded LaShawn McCoy for linebacker Kiko Alonso. Now, it didn't really work out for the Eagles because Kiko Alonso wasn't very good for him, even though he's good in Miami now. But a straight-up player for player can be kind of rare, and this would be really interesting to see what the Eagles are going to do. The second one also includes the Jags, but this one includes the Eagles trading a first-round pick to the Jags for cornerback Jalen Ramsey. So here would be a straight-up, give you our one, give us your best defensive player, Jalen Ramsey, or at least your best cornerback, Jalen Ramsey. That one's interesting as well. Well, before we talk about that one, let's go down to the third one. The Eagles trade a 5th-round pick to the Bills for, just mentioned him, running back LaShawn McCoy. Okay, those are our 3 projected ones here. They're all interesting, and not a lot of them, I think, technically make sense for the Eagles. At least the first one, I think, well, it's tough here, guys, because really, the Eagles could do all 3 of these trades, or they could really do none of these trades based on different scenarios here and there. You talk about the first one, Nick Foles for Leonard Fournette. Up front, that sounds really, really good because you're going to get a running back, which the Eagles need. He was a first-round draft pick a couple years back when he was drafted by the Jaguars. So up front, it seems like a win for the Eagles. But we know Leonard Fournette can't really stay healthy. So then the question becomes, a lot of people are saying the Eagles might trade Nick Foles to the Jags for a 3rd-round pick. So which would you rather have if you're an Eagles fan? A 3rd-round pick from the Jags or a running back who is getting a little bit older? He's been in the league, running back lifespan is not what it once was, so he's getting a little bit older. He has an injury history that's not very good. Would the Eagles want to trade Nick Foles straight up for a running back when they could go get one in the draft? The second one is interesting. A 1st-round draft pick for Jalen Ramsey. The problem here arises in the fact that you're eventually going to have to pay Jalen Ramsey as the best cornerback in the league. Now, we know right now, if you were to trade for him in 2019, give up a 1st-round draft pick, at least for this year, Jalen Ramsey's still on his rookie deal. So you could technically have 1 year of cheap, really good Jalen Ramsey, but in the future, you're going to have to pay him. We also know in the future, you're going to have to pay Carson Wentz. So you start to add up all the money here and you go, can we actually afford the number 1 cornerback in the league for a 1st-round draft pick? Why not just use a 1st-round draft pick if you needed a corner, which I don't think the Eagles technically do need a corner. They had a bunch of young guys come up and play really, really well. Trayvon LeBlanc, Avonte Maddox, you don't really need one just yet. So the question becomes, just draft one if you had to get another cornerback, and then you have 4 or 5 years on a rookie deal versus 1 year and then paying Jalen Ramsey. And the final one, LaShawn McCoy for a 5th. If I'm an Eagles fan, why not? We know LaShawn McCoy is aging. He's going to be 31 years old. He's not what he once was, but maybe a fresh change of scenery and a 5th-round draft pick is not a lot for what could be a nice rotational running back piece for your offense. A lot of different scenarios here, guys. Which one would you rather have happen if you are an Eagles fan? Which one makes sense? Nick Foles for Leonard Fournette, first-round draft pick for Jalen Ramsey, or a fifth-round draft pick for LaShawn McCoy? Let me know in the comments section down below. Let's move on to our next team. Big Blue, New York City, the New York Football Giants. This one's interesting. The Giants might be eyeing the top free agent slot cornerback in Bryce Callahan. Now, here are the reports, here are the rumors. They're apparently very interested in Bryce Callahan. They need help in the secondary. We know that. Janoris Jenkins cost a ton of money. He could actually be a cap cut. Like, they could cut him going forward. So then you would need another cornerback. And the Bears are not expected to re-sign Bryce Callahan. Now, let's go to Bryce Callahan's resume here. If you don't recognize the name, you either weren't watching enough Chicago Bears games or you started watching too late because he did get injured. Pro Football Focus ranks him as the number 2 cornerback available in this free agent class. He played 610 of his 689 snaps in the slot in 2018. He's basically a pure nickel cornerback. He's going to play purely in the slot if you sign him and you're the New York Giants. The big deal is broken foot in 2018. It was late in 2018, but he did break his foot, and that kind of hindered them as they went into their playoff run. That was the big news, is that they lost one of their key pieces in the secondary. Bryce Callahan's a great football player, and if he comes back completely healthy, there are a lot of teams, not just the Giants, who are going to be willing to throw some money at a good slot cornerback. I think we get too caught up on the Jalen Ramseys of the world and thinking that the outside cornerback is what matters. Not exactly the case. A lot of teams like to take guys like Odell Beckham Jr., take guys like Antonio Brown, and put them in the slot and force your nickel cornerback to cover him. If you have a good nickel cornerback, then you really have a really strong secondary if the nickel cornerback is still a very good player. So adding Bryce Callahan is a great option for the New York Giants. Finally, let's move into our Washington Redskins portion of today's show. Interesting rumors here in Washington. We'll start with the quarterback position. Last week, we talked about how because they're spending so much money on Alex Smith, regardless of how much money you're paying him, they're going to roll and ride with Colt McCoy. Now the rumor is that the Redskins might be interested in free agent quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. Now Bridgewater is a free agent this year, and like we said earlier, the Redskins technically only have one healthy quarterback signed through 2019, and it's Colt McCoy. Alex Smith is signed, not healthy, probably not going to play in 2019. We know that. The Redskins have about $20.5 million in free cap space, and if you look at Teddy Bridgewater, he's not going to command a lot of money. Here are the stats we know, the career highlight of Teddy Bridgewater. He's only 26, so he is young, but that brutal knee injury in 2016 kind of looms over his career, and it's the reason he only has 25 pass attempts over the last 3 seasons. So you have a guy who started off really, really strong, got injured, and then really has not played a lot of meaningful football in the past 3 years. Again, he backed up Drew Brees last year, played in the preseason, and that was about it. He really didn't even get on the field, obviously, because Drew Brees is Drew Brees, and he's great. So, could Washington spend their early draft pick, spend that teen, I think it's 12 or 13 overall, on someone other than a quarterback? Get someone on the defensive side, get a wide receiver, get a tackle, get a player other than a quarterback, and then actually go into free agency and sign Teddy Bridgewater, who's kind of a win-win scenario. You don't pay him a lot, and you don't expect a lot from him, but you could throw him into the mix and have him compete with Colt McCoy. And hey, if Bridgewater was able to recapture what he was before the 2016 injury, then suddenly you have a really good quarterback that doesn't cost any money, and you've paired him up with whatever draft pick you were able to get with that first round pick instead of having to go draft a quarterback. It just makes a lot of sense. Just think about it for a second. Teddy Bridgewater, we know he hasn't been great in the past because of injury, but if he came in on a cheap deal and you were able to pair him up, Darius Geis comes back and you bring back Adrian Peterson, and you might actually have a team that many people think will be the worst team in the NFC East, could suddenly skyrocket. And like we know in the past, no team has won back-to-back NFC East crowns since the Eagles did it in 04-03, I believe. And so maybe Washington could make a cheap move that could pay off in the long run. The final Redskin rumor here, we already mentioned his name, is actually Adrian Peterson. Now, if you're not a Redskins fan, you probably will forget how good, or you didn't even realize how good Adrian Peterson was last year, and the Redskins are going to try to keep him. Both sides have expressed mutual interest that they want to keep Adrian Peterson, that Adrian Peterson wants to stay with Washington. Of course, we already said Darius Geis, the rookie running back out of LSU last year, tore his ACL. He's going to come back from that injury. So you pair Geis up with Peterson, and that's a really good combination. We said it before. The Redskins, they don't have a ton of cap space. They're not the Niners, the Colts, or the Jets, but $20.5 million is enough to make some moves here, and Adrian Peterson's not going to cost an arm and a leg like other, running backs cost in the league right now. He's not going to demand Zeke money or any of the other Le'Veon Bell money, for instance. He's too old for that, but still a really good player. Look at the 2018 resume. 1,042 yards rushing. He was a 1,000-yard rusher. 7 touchdowns, 4.2 yards per carry. He was the 5th highest running back in terms of rushing yards, the 5th highest rusher, I should say, in the league last year. The 5th highest. Ancient Adrian Peterson, who seems years and years and years removed from his Viking days when he was breaking records and rushing for 2,000 yards, still is a very good player. People talk about durability with him. He played in all 16 games last year for Washington. This makes perfect sense. He'll come back. He's not going to cost a lot of money. You could sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal. 3 years is going to be the max, though, because he is getting old. Then you pair him up with Darius Geis, and you have 2 running backs, a 1-2 punch of Geis and Peterson. Then you throw in, like, Teddy Bridgewater, maybe. Somehow either sign a wide receiver in free agency or draft one, and the offense in Washington could look completely different than it did last year after the Alex Smith injury, and you could be set pretty well going forward. Adrian Peterson makes a ton of sense for the Washington Redskins. What do you guys think? Should they keep Adrian Peterson? Should they add Teddy Bridgewater? I want to hear from you guys. Go down to the comment section, type away on your phones, on your keyboard, on your iPad, however you're going to type, and let me know. I read through all the comments. I'm very curious to kind of gauge the fans' desire for different players. Redskin fans, Peterson, Bridgewater, what do you guys think? I want to hear from you guys. And as always, we're here next week doing the same rumors again because the NFC East is very interesting. They all have different moves that they can make, and we're getting closer and closer to where free agency officially begins and people start signing people. It's going to be great. Stay here. Subscribe to Chat Sports. We're going to have a lot of good stuff coming up in the next couple weeks. I'll be here next week for your NFC East rumors. I'm Thomas Mott. You can follow me online on Twitter at RealThomasMott. Tweet me, DM me. You want to talk about any of the things we talked about today? I will tweet you back. So tweet out at me, give me a follow, and let me know what you guys think. For all of our NFC East rumors today, I'm Thomas Mott. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.